Hello, and welcome to Freya's Tropical Garden. This is another opportunity for you to see my video on the Unusual Plants Fair at Gilbert White's house, which featured in episode 3. Today I'm here at Gilbert White's house for the Unusual Plants Fair. Gilbert White was an 18th century naturalist who lived in the quiet village of Selborne in Hampshire. He wrote a world-famous book called The Natural History and Antiquities of Selborne. But he also kept a diary called the Garden Calendar, from which most of the gardens have been recreated. As you walk around the garden, you'll see these diary excerpts written onto slate, and these help to provide an interesting insight. Gilbert White collected a lot of unusual plants, and much like many of us today, needed to come up with ways of growing the more tropical varieties in the English climate. This melon frame is constructed on a bed of straw and contains horse manure to provide extra heat. And the temperature inside can be regulated by sliding the glass panels. In the 18th century, having a statue in your garden was seen as a sign of status. Gilbert White came from very humble beginnings, so he used this illusion to create his statue. Can you spot what it is he's done? So as you can see, this statue is actually just made of wood. It's a very clever illusion that I would never have guessed if I hadn't been told. This oak tree was planted in 1730 by Gilbert White when he was just 10 years old. So this location is a beautiful place to visit anyway, and the ideal place to hold the Unusual Plants Fair. The Unusual Plants Fair is an annual event with many stallholders gathered together to sell plants. As well as a range of different plants for sale, you can also stop by and speak to experts for advice, or listen to the talks and presentations that are being given. So I'm here today with Miles from Miles Japanese Maples. Miles, I've noticed you're growing all your plants in airpots, isn't it?
In airpots, yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about what they are and what they do for your plants?
Yeah, sure. So airpots are designed to stop root spiralling in the container, which can be a big problem with woody plants. The idea is that the roots, as they grow out from the tree, would normally hit the wall of the container and then they would just spiral round and round. These are guided out towards the holes. If you can see inside there, they're guided out towards the holes, they meet the air, and obviously the root can't survive in the air. So the idea is that the tip of the root effectively dies back, which is the equivalent to being pruned, and so the root on the inside then branches out, and so you end up with a really nice fibrous root system, because that happens again and again and again. So they establish much better and you grow a happier tree.
Are there particular types of plants that you find do better in these pots?
Well, I only grow acers in them. So I know places like Kew and Wakehurst now only use airpots in their production, and they grow thousands of different types of plants.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't grow anything in there, say like bamboo, which might possibly grow out of the side.
Yeah.
But anything else, yeah. I did do some tomatoes in them last year. They did very well.
Yeah, you can still see a noticeable difference.
You can see a noticeable difference, yeah, absolutely.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about the plants that you grow here?
Yeah, so I grow a range of Acer palmatum cultivars, all sorts of different Japanese maples. I grow some from seed, but most of them are grown by grafting. So you can see, for example, on this little tree here, this is a dissectum called viridis. The graft is down here, would have been grafted a couple of years ago. And you have to graft Japanese maples if you want to keep the characteristics of the tree. So it's a genetic copy each time, same as you would with apples or any of the particular cultivars. And I grow them all at home in my back garden. We're peat free, don't use any pesticides or anything. And I grow as many different types as I possibly can fit in.
So that's another thing, because a lot of gardeners are finding peat-free compost quite difficult at the moment. What do you do to make sure that the peat-free compost has enough nutrients?
So after 7 years now, and each year I've been tweaking the compost mix. So currently I'm using a coir-based peat-free, but I'm mixing that with some wool compost as well, which helps with the nutrient levels. But I'm also including some John Innes number 3, which helps buffer the nutrients out as well, and an organic fertiliser, which definitely helps rather than the chemical fertiliser, I find. And I'm experimenting this year with biochar.
Okay.
So each year it gets, I think, a little bit better.
Okay.
But I think it's experimentation, definitely. You have to be careful that you don't rule something out within the first couple of years. Sometimes you need to allow a plant a good season or two before you make a decision about the compost. Don't just assume that something's wrong with it, then change it for something else, give it a chance to get settled in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll take each plant a little bit of time to adjust to a new mix.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's all right.
So I'm here with Lisa. Lisa works with Fleur de Lys. And can you tell me a little bit about some of the plants that you grow?
Yes, I can. Freya, I grow plants that like to live under glass. So that means for us conservatories, greenhouses, orangeries, swimming pool enclosures, that kind of protected environment.
Lovely. How did you get started growing these?
That's a good question. All my training is in horticulture, but I specialised in fruit when I first started out, fruit production, apples, pears, soft fruits, etc. And then after a while thought I'd really love to work for myself. So this became a business idea. That was quite a long time ago, Freya. And of course then the conservatory business was booming and people were putting up conservatories all over the place. That has calmed down now. But there are a lot of different takes on glass buildings, more so than ever before. Some people seem to have a lot of glass in an extension, let's say an office in the garden, big bifold doors from the kitchen out into the garden, all that kind of thing. We've always got a plant that we can think that's a great space for that plant.
Lovely. So what plants do you recommend for the brightest parts of the conservatory?
It depends very much on whether the conservatory's got heat in the winter. Some people run a building with no heat at all, and that's one set of plants, what I would call temperate plants really. Those that don't mind going down to just above freezing, so they're protected by the glass but there's no extra heat input. And you could try all kinds of things, what could we think of just for now? These ferns, for example, this is a beautiful foxtail fern. The florists love this. It gets big and these plumes get longer and longer and longer. It's lovely to grow and you can cut them for flower arrangements. That likes that kind of winter, it's fine, but it also needs some shade in the summer. And this is just such a plant, Brillantasia. It looks like a huge overgrown salvia, but it is actually not a salvia. And it has a fantastic knuckle at the bottom, which I don't know if you can just see it. A knuckle of growth, which it's a perennial plant, and that knuckle gets bigger and bigger and bigger each year and produces more and more upright shoots each year. So you can, in the end, grow a whacking great plant, and it gets taller and taller. Now this is a modest young one, but we have some people who grow these and they end up about 6, 7, 8 feet tall with plumes on the top. Terrific plant.
Oh, wonderful.
But no heat required in the winter.
And also with the Livingstonia that I've just purchased.
Livingstonia, yes. Well, our experience of that is they're pretty hardy. When you read about them, they say, yes, it's fine to go down to below 0. I would say that very much depends on where your below 0 is. If it's in a wet back garden in an English winter, I would be very cautious myself. But I think in protected overhead by glass of some sort, conservatory, greenhouse, no heat, I would say is perfectly happy.
What's your favourite type of plants to grow here?
That's a very difficult thing to say. It depends which year it is. This year I think one of my favourite things is this plant, Cissus.
Oh wow.
We've grown these for a few years and nobody's paid them any attention or been very interested, and I'm not sure why, but actually they've suddenly become quite interesting to people this year. And it has beautiful vine-like leaves and it grows extremely long if you want it to. So it will trail or climb. It has these little tendrils and I just love it. how could you not love that?
No, that's wonderful.
Is it charming?
Plant,
yeah, it is, isn't it? Terrific, great fun, and also really nice to mix in with the tropicals, I think, because it really goes in with them somehow. So yes, that's my plant of the year.
Wonderful. And what sort of plants do you find the easiest to propagate?
I'm not brilliant at seed sowing. It's not my thing really, but cuttings I do enjoy doing. So all of these plants have a time of year when cuttings work. Some of them have a very narrow window like that, where if you don't take it at 12 o'clock on that day, that's it, you've blown it. And some have a very much broader space in time where you could take cuttings, softwood cuttings in the spring, let's say, semi-ripes a bit later on, and then hardwood cuttings over the winter, and they will still root out at different intervals of time. So yeah, cuttings are good. And yeah, having the right facility to get them rooted, that's helpful. Some of your cuttings that you might take in the winter time need a bit of heat at the bottom to really get them rooted out.
And this plant here just behind you, this is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful pink flowers.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. This is bougainvillea, which is originally from Asia. And as such, they like settled periods of the same day length as compared to the night. So 12-hour-long days and nights they love, and they love the same consistent temperatures, humidity. So they like life to be the same all year round. Well, of course, over here you don't get that, do you? We have seasons, so they behave slightly differently here than they do where they come from. And we have to find ways of protecting them in the winter. They need about 10 degrees centigrade to get through the winter. So they like bright light. If you've got those two things, I would say they're one of the easiest conservatory plants you can grow. A lot of people come to us and say, can I put that in the garden? And the answer really is yes, but you have to protect it in the winter. So it's not garden hardy as such.
And what sort of protection? You mean bringing it indoors for winter?
Indoors, yeah. It's got to be warm enough to get through the winter, and that's really minimum of 10 degrees C.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
There's also a lovely stall here from Palms UK. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get an interview with Natalie. However, she did talk me through some of her plants, including this one here, which is the Camarops volcano. This is a more compact variety of Camarops and is ideal for growing in a container. It is also a multi-stem bush variety. Here we have the smaller Trachycarpus wagiranus. And a larger plant is also available for sale today. This palm is very hardy and has much darker green leaves than the more common Trachycarpus fortunei. Its leaves are also more rigid, which helps it stand up better in strong winds. Whereas the Trachycarpus fortunei has individual fingers that will move around in the wind. Brahia amata, or the Mexican blue palm, is also very stunning for its blue leaves, and these are even more vibrant when in the sunshine. This is thought to be hardy in the milder parts of the country, but can be grown in colder parts with some protection. It's difficult to propagate and slow growing, which does make it one of the more expensive varieties of palm to buy. But it is definitely a beautiful addition to any garden. This Camarops is another bushy variety of palm. The Camarops tend to be quite slow growing as well, although they are more hardy and easier to propagate than the Brahia. And this particular plant actually won a gold medal at Chelsea. And this silver leaf variety is Camarops seraphia. Now, at the time I visited this stall, this was actually the only palm they still had for sale, so of course I had to buy it. Plus, I've been wanting a silver leaf variety of palm.
Well, I've had a lovely day at the Unusual Plant Fair today. It's been a hot day, but the weather's been fantastic, and I've got some lovely plants to show for it. I've got this Camarops, I've got this Courtleya, which is a relative of the ginger, and I have my Livingstonia palm tree, so I'm going to have some happy gardening planting these.
Don't forget you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook or on my website, and please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you've enjoyed the content.